Let's talk about Christ the King. When you think of a
Yeah.
king, just a king in general, what do you think of?
To be honest, I think of tyranny. I think of betrayal of their own people. They're the first things I think of, because I remember I remember learning about it in school, like in history. When you hear of kings, they're usually people that use their own people to get to their positions of power. There were obviously good kings that you hear about, but I guess the negatives tend to stand out first. But in all honesty, that's what I think of at first. So then to hear Christ the King and the King of Kings, then okay, there's a bit of a turnaround, obviously, in what I think.
So if you were to think about Christ as King, what does Christ as King look like?
That's a great question. When I think of it, I think of, I don't want it to sound too much like a slave master sort of thing, in the negative sense, I guess.
Yes.
But that's to a degree what I think of, a master who you almost make the center of all your decisions in life, and all your actions, all your thoughts, your
Yeah.
I don't want to go too deep too early.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So almost in a way, you're a slave to his love and what he's going to offer you.
Yeah.
In the gospel that just passed over the weekend, we have an image of what this kingship looks like.
Yeah.
And it's the good shepherd.
Yeah.
It's the good shepherd. Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, spoke about it in the first reading, what this shepherd looks like, because the shepherds of Israel prior to Christ were looking after themselves and not their sheep. So there's the connection between what you thought a king or someone in a position of power would do. They would abuse their power. And then Jesus comes in and says, I'm the good shepherd. And when I come again, I'm going to separate the sheep from the goats. And so then the question becomes, how do I know if I'm a sheep or a goat? So you think about these animals for a moment. So any shepherd, in the traditional sense, will look at these animals. Sheep will know the voice of their shepherd. They'll listen. Okay?
Yep.
But a goat, if you've ever seen a goat, goat's a stubborn creature. A goat does what it wants. A goat will go wherever it wants to go. A goat will ruin crops and all sorts of things. Whereas sheep will just graze on grass. They'll listen. They want to be protected.
Yeah.
And they follow.
Yeah.
But a goat will not do such a thing. So this is that real beautiful image of the sheep and the goats. And so Jesus will separate them. Notice how they're all together. So Jesus separates them. And then because this is a great parable, he says, okay, if you want to be a sheep, this is how you'll know you're one of my sheep. You recognize my voice. And what does my voice tell us? Very, very simple in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, verse 40. Judgment of the nations. I was hungry and you gave me something to eat.
Yeah.
I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. I was sick and you looked after me. And then everyone takes his words literally. It's like, Lord, but we never saw you like that.
Yeah.
And then Jesus says, what you do to the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you do to me. And there we have it. That's how you know whether or not you're a goat or a sheep.
Wow.
And so my challenge in my homily over the weekend was review your year. Review your year now that we're coming toward the end of the year. Have you done any of these things? That's how you know. That's the mark of a Christian. Love God and love your neighbor. Recognize the voice of your God, the shepherd, and love your neighbor. So
Wow.
there's the challenge.
That is a challenge. And it's never easy to pick out our faults, our own faults, and to say, well, actually, you know what? Maybe I am a bit more like a goat than I am a sheep in that regard. Yeah, I think, and it can very easily creep into our lives. These little things that we think are just everyday sorts of things. They're normal, but then you really look back and you're like, okay, no, I have to fix this. Like, and it can be something as simple and as little as like swearing, you know. And then you can think, okay, is every second word that I say a swear word? Is it necessary? You know, there are 40,000 other words in the English vocabulary. Do I have to pick that one?
Yeah. Just on that point.
Yeah.
Or even a bigger one, which is plaguing our young people, blasphemy.
Yeah.
The name of our Lord and Savior is in nearly every song, movie,
Yeah.
talk show. Someone's shocked, they say his name.
Yeah.
Even young people saying, and I'm doing this in the context of a spiritual conversation, so it's not blasphemy.
Yeah.
But to say, oh my God.
Yeah.
Or if someone's shocked by something, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, we as young Christians, we have to get that out of our vocab. Because Christ is not reigning in your heart as king if you're a person who blasphemes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's massive. And I think we've just let it go for way too long. So not only with the coarse language, but even worse, the blasphemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Terrible thing.
Yeah. And then like there are everyday things. Like I was really thinking about how I recognize Christ as king in my life. And even in things like modesty, like when we mention modesty, we tend to think very specifically it being how a woman dresses. Like that's that's our idea of modesty generally. Not realizing that firstly it applies to how both men and women dress, but then it's even more than dress. It's the way we talk, the way we act, the way we dance at a party, which is why Catholics do it so well, because there's modesty involved in that. The way we think, like it's a whole big thing. And then you hear people make like crude jokes and things, and sometimes our mind can go straight there because we've been around it for so long. And the temptation is to just blurt it out when you're even when you're in a group of guys. Like you can just be tempted to say something, like make a crude joke or something. And I remember once my brother said to me, I was a bit younger, and we were laughing at a joke that was made, a crude joke that was made. And my brother said to me, do you think it was after reflection and things, so it wasn't being a party pooper, it was actually a good thing to have said. He said to me, do you think the saints would have laughed at a joke like that? Like, and then I thought, okay, it actually hit me pretty hard. And I went, okay, if I'm striving to be a saint and they wouldn't have laughed at that, I've got to stop, you know? And I laugh at things. Like I laugh at nothing.
I know.
Yeah, I do. I laugh at nothing.
Just say it's a beautiful laugh, contagious.
Thank you. Oh,
and
thanks.
It lights up the room.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the few compliments you'll get from me.
I appreciate it. Someone mark this moment in time, whatever the time is right now and the date. Mark it. No, but we can be tempted to do those things, and then you think, well, if Christ is the center of my life, then things like modesty in that regard, in those everyday senses of those jokes and the way we dress and things like that, they become something that even if we're tempted to still do them, or we think, well, this isn't so bad, then we're like, no, you know what? Like, let's be a little bit harsher on ourselves. And that's, I mean, if Christ really rules in the center of and is the center of our lives, then we don't negotiate or settle for anything less than perfection.
Yes. And one of the ways that you can measure that is firstly around your groups of friends.
Yeah.
Whether or not you have to put something on in front of them like a different persona, a different way of speaking.
Yeah.
But I think the most critical way of knowing whether or not this affects your life is when you're around children. Are you the same person around children
Oh, wow.
that you are just around your friends, your family? So if you're not, that's okay. That means you've got something to work on.
Yeah.
And everything can be worked on with the help of God. But especially around that younger generation that are growing up in a world of such confusion, that are growing up in a world of blasphemy, growing up in a world of violence, narcissism, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
We need to be that example to them. And so if you're someone at home walking around dropping F-bombs around your children, I'm sorry, that's wrong. We got to do something drastically different.
Yeah.
Christ does not reign in your heart if you're behaving that way.
Yes.
So I think those are two very good ways of measuring whether or not you're modest in speech, by assessing the way you are around different groups of people. Ideally, you want to be yourself around all of these groups.
Yeah.
And not put on a different persona in front of varying groups.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that's very important
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah. Well, you be the reason that other people change the way they act in front of you. Like, I know people that, and this isn't to like brag or anything, but I know people who don't make those jokes in front of me because they know it's just not something I appreciate.
Yes.
Or people who try not to swear. Sometimes they do, but they'll apologize straight away, you know. But
see, that's good because they're realizing they've said something they know just in polite society
that's right.
you just shouldn't say.
Yeah.
Whereas another person might just drop it like it's nothing and just move on and think nothing of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's like, Christ says it. It says, I probably won't get his wording right exactly, but to the effect of what comes out of your mouth reflects what's in your heart.
Yes.
And so you got to be careful what you take in, because very soon that becomes part of you.
Yes.
And yeah, it's pretty dangerous.
So if Christ reigns in your heart as king, then there's going to be nothing but love and peace and clarity that comes from you. Now that can sometimes be intimidating to people, which is why they say keep all the religion stuff in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
But that's not what a king that loves us wants to do. He wants to reign in the hearts of everyone.
Yeah.
And for the people that have embraced him, we've seen drastic changes in their lives. I'm a living example of this. My past, my history was not always about the church and about faith in God.
Yeah.
And you and I met fairly early on in both of our journeys, and we knew that to be the case.
Yeah.
We knew that there were other priorities in our lives, but when you allow Jesus to rule in your heart, life changes for the better. Now, again, it's important to say we're not self-righteous. We're not up on pedestals saying we're perfect people. We're big stuff-ups.
Yeah.
We make mistakes. We're sinners. But when Christ reigns in your heart, life is different in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's noticeable. There's just this joy that radiates from people who do make Christ the center of their lives and who allow Christ to reign in their hearts.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Don't be afraid to go against the grain and click on some of these videos to my right or left. Like, subscribe, comment and follow on all the socials, and we'll see you next time.